one station to turn to. Radio Bahamas, 1540 AM, 104.5 FM.
The views and opinions expressed on this show or program are not a reflection of the Bahamas Radio Network and, as an extension, the Broadcasting Corporation of the Bahamas.
Welcome to Darold Miller Live here on the ZNS Radio and Television Networks. We are streaming to the world at www.znsbahamas.com. Let us pray. O God, our Heavenly Father, hallowed be thy name. We come humbly before your throne of grace and mercy this morning to thank you for bringing us into a new year. We come to thank you for your continued blessings. We come to thank you for this beautiful country, so filled with natural resources, it has become the envy of the world. Oh God, teach us how to be better caretakers, better stewards of this country. Give us vision, wisdom, knowledge, and understanding so that we can overcome the challenges that often hold us back. As we conduct this show today, guide our thoughts, direct our speech, and control our tongues. And through it all, we will take comfort in your assurance that absolutely no weapons formed against us shall prosper. We thank you for that assurance. In Jesus' name, amen. As we promoted the fact that Glenys Hanna-Martin was going to be our very special guest today here on Darold Miller Live, we made two statements that we believe to be true based on our extensive research and our many years of being in journalism. Firstly, we said Englerston, which is represented in the House of Assembly by Glenys Hanna-Martin, we said Englerston is the only seat that the Progressive Liberal Party, the PLP, has never lost. In other words, of all the seats, 38 one time, 39 another time, 42, I believe, at one point, 43. Of all the seats in the House, the only seat the PLP has never lost is Englerston. That's the statement we made. We're going to put that to the test with the Member of Parliament for Englerston in a moment. Sir Clifford Darling was the first MP for Englerston, we believe. And since then, the PLP has always held on to it. After Sir Clifford, I think it was Peter Bethel. After Peter Bethel, I think it was Philip Glenys. And after Glenys, our guest, Glenys Hanna-Martin. Happy New Year to you.
Thank you. Happy New Year to you, Darold.
You have a great legacy to uphold. Let me finish. The other statement we made was that as far as we understand it, as far as independence is concerned, the real architect of Bahamian independence was your daddy, Arthur Dion Hanna, not Pinland. Am I right?
I wouldn't want to answer in a yes or no. I could explain it.
Go ahead, please.
I think that independence was always part of the landscape for the Progressive Liberal Party. It was a natural extension of the journey, majority rule, self-determination, sovereignty, etc. I think there might have been a sort of variance in terms of the timelines. I believe that A.D. Hanna was a little more aggressive in the way he foresaw when it should happen, how quickly it should happen. And then, of course, Pindling became the salesman because he understood how to sell such an abstract concept and a scary one to a large extent. So I'll put it that way. I think that it was something that was very fervent in his spirit, and that he felt it should be an aggressive approach.
So if I were to put it another way, your daddy was the driving force. You still ain't one.
Well, you know, I think that I'm told that Lyndon Pindling describes him, A.D. Hanna, as the father of the nation.
Wow.
Meaning it in a different way, of nationhood. And so I believe that there is that nomenclature that he gave him discloses some of the internal politics of what happened.
That's why I say you have a great legacy to uphold.
It is, and I was just telling someone, the more I understand our history, the more I see how big those shoes are, and you know, I'm tempted to feel a sense of inadequacy in terms of how, in my own personal life, we've executed. When you consider the legacy that we have inherited, it's just an incredible legacy.
I don't
you know.
You should feel you're in the House of Assembly.
Yeah, no, I didn't say I feel inadequate. I said a sense of inadequacy in certain respects.
Yeah.
But no, you know, we've been able to achieve some things. But when you consider the purposeful focus and the seriousness of the undertaking that happened post 1967, you know, it tells you. I mean, it's a standard that's really being set, and the question is whether we have adequately met that standard as a people. You know, that's the query I raise. I believe good effort has been extended in these matters, but when I go back and look at the purposeful, specific vision, clear vision that was being executed, that was laid out and that was being executed, you know, I think it's something that we have to go and review and to see whether we have fallen a little afoul of that specific vision that is intended to carry the Bahamian people forward.
What do you call him, Daddy?
Yeah.
Did he take you on his shoulder to the meetings and the rallies and the conventions?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how come, what was it, how I got there, etc. But my introduction was through both parents. They were both political creatures, my father in particular. But they traveled a lot, they campaigned a lot, and I remember sleeping in a house in Foxhill when my parents were out hitting the ground trying to win an election that was designed to change the reality of our people. So I've always been, one way or another, in the periphery of it, but I was naturally attracted to it. And to be honest with you, I was attracted to what I heard my father say as a politician. And that's where it didn't become so much daddy. It became more listening to someone articulate a vision, if you can imagine it's possible to create that dichotomy. And his articulations about the future and the vision and the way our people are viewed and the potentiality was something that really, really, truly captivated me in a way that, you know, it's fundamental. So to answer your question, yes, I went along with him. I listened. I heard Pindling. I remember Milo Butler. I was a young child. but I was surrounded by this political reality, these dynamic political forces.
Did he take you more than he took your older, I think, Dion and Mark?
That's a good question. I'm trying to remember, I think Dion and Mark, I believe they were in boarding school, but I don't know. I can't speak on that definitively. I know I have younger siblings. I don't know. I only recall my own reality of being in this swirl of
You're talking
political.
5? How old are you talking about now?
Probably around 5, 6, yeah. As far as I can remember, I'm sure it was before that. I remember being in someone's house in Foxhill, our general's house, a lady, when I was probably younger than that.
Where were you 1967, January 10th?
Boy,
You remember?
no, I can't remember that specifically, but I do believe it was a sense of euphoria that cannot be articulated.
So you're in your late 50s?
I'm 50.
Sorry, guys.
Why you ask?
Sorry.
You ain't sorry.
I just want to get
You're not sorry.
the chronological.
I turned 59 October 27th. Just gone.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then Independence morning, were you on Clifford Park?
I was right there. Right there. Now that I remember because I was in the mix. I was part of that energy. I was 14. And that was in my spirit, wholesale as a young advocate, and that tells you young people can be advocates and be politically in the mix. That's why in our party, you can join the party at age 15. But I was 14 at the time, and I remember very well, I do.
You went to QC?
Queen's College, yes.
With O.B. Wilshcombe?
O.B. Wilshcombe, yes.
That's why you are such good friends.
Well, he came in grade 9, but yeah, we were, in fact, the entire year is very close-knit. And it was a very progressive group. Everyone's done well in their own right, in their various endeavors. And we had a sense of nation. We were very fortunate because we were around at the time of that transition, when the consciousness level was so high, when there was this believability about who we could be. That is what we were imbued with at that time. And I think we were very fortunate to be a part of that transitional moment in our history,
I think they used to call you a radical.
I don't know that. Who tell you that now? Oh, Lord.
There was this movement. I think there might have been a Sean McQueenie somewhere. These younger people, pushing for something more than what the leaders were pushing for.
Sean is a little older than me, and he would have been more than my brother. And if you know my brother's
He was radical.
He is. Was there. He is. And but this was the nature of our upbringing. Both my parents, mother and father, had a view about the Bahamas that was unrestrained. And so that's why I get very frustrated when I see this conservative, sort of guarded view about who we are and where we can go. We didn't grow up like that, and we didn't grow up hearing that kind of articulation. And really, in truth, the history of the Progressive Liberal Party, while there was levels of conservatism, it was always radical in a lot of respects. And that is why 1967 is so important, because if you begin at 1942, which was the Burma Road riot, and you see that, or even you go back to slavery and the abolition and the journey of our people in terms of being buried under race hatred and race confinement based on race, and the whole brainwashing about who we are and what we can do, and being burdened by that, and then having a political awakening. And then with the 1942 riot, there was this awakening that said, why can't I get the same wages as the foreigner? And then, of course, you had the general strike, and then 62 elections, and then the Black Tuesday. And so there's always been a sense of radicalism if you describe it as a way of going to the root and not accepting a fundamental truth that's being put on you that you do not accept. And so, that's what I grew up hearing and understanding. And I subscribe to that wholly and solely.
You mentioned your mother, and it's important for us to put her in her true context. I believe I'm correct in saying, you will correct me, that while your father was pushing for Bahamian self-determination, your mother was pushing for global self-determination around the world, including South Africa?
I think that, I was thinking about this morning, you know. The Bahamas was experiencing what was happening globally. Everywhere in the region and in Africa, you had, even in India, a few years before, you had this resistance to colonialism and to oppression. And so the Bahamas was a natural participant in this global transitional effort. I think that to answer that question, I would say this. I think that both my parents were very astutely aware of the global phenomena that was happening. In fact, my father went to university with many of these people who had the same aspirations from Africa and all over. So he would have been very aware. My mother was a bit different because she came from England. He met her in university, and she was not necessarily in a political reality. But I could tell you, you know, she joined with my father. She was a partner in his political effort. She was, in her own right, a subscriber to the principles of justice, equity, equality, freedom, in a most fundamental way. And so I think that they, you know, I would describe it like that. I think they both had an understanding of the global effort and the meaning to our indigenous efforts in the Bahamas.
How old is Daddy?
He's 89. He'll be 90 in March.
Ooh.
Yeah. Be 90 in March.
Strong? Is he still strong?
Strong.
He got his head about him?
Yeah. He's strong and amazing. He's an amazing man in a lot of ways. And I truly admire him, particularly, but he was a good father, and so that goes without saying. But in the political realm.
He provided for his children.
Oh, yes. Oh, without a doubt.
And many other children, too, whether
yes.
they were in the constituency,
Yes, yeah.
Up in
Yeah.
Camp Road.
Yep. They still talk about him in Anstown because they just do. You know, they remember him, and it's been many, many, many years. And he is he's legendary in that area, you know. And so I feel very privileged to have had access and proximity to someone who was so enlightened and so courageous and principled in his political life.
He did not accept, and probably will never accept, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Why not?
Well, because it was this, you know, it's about the progression of our people. Mm-hmm. We can't get stalled, you know. And that's why I was feeling kind of good when the Prime Minister, I think he appointed a committee for the national honors. Mm-hmm. But I see why he did that, because what he was getting ready to do was to do more British honors, Queen honors. But I think it's part of this vision of coming of our own and moving to our self-identity as a people. It's not an easy task, but part of that too, ultimately, I believe, I'm not speaking for him, but I think part of it too, if you look at the logic of the journey, is a republic, is relinquishing colonial ties in its fullness. But I think that the reason he did not accept it is because it is the coming to a decision that we must move from the Queen honoring our people who do good in our own country. That is why, you know, I think it's very important, and I think Antonius Roberts, I read something quickly, I didn't read it in depth, but he was recently honored by Queen's Honors. He said, yes, he will accept it, but it would have meant much more to him to have been given national honors, Bahamian national honors, and be amongst the first. So to answer your question, Darold, it is this conviction that we must continue to move the envelope forward in the progress and journey of our people. It, in truth, began in Africa for a large majority, but not all. We are a multi-ethnic and racial community. But by and large, it began in Africa, across the Middle Passage, and ultimately in a slavery environment in this region, and then abolition, colonialism, majority rule, sovereignty. So it's a continuation of that journey of repairing a sort of retardation of our progress as a people. And so that's the reason why. Sorry, it's a long explanation, but I think that's the reason why. It's the commitment that, it's the conviction that we should be honoring ourselves. Because we're worthy of doing that. We are worthy of honoring ourselves. You don't have to jump over us.
Let's go to that first statement I made and let's check the veracity of that. PLP never lost Englerston.
Never.
That's the only seat anywhere. That also means if the PLP has never lost Englerston, it also means, well, not necessarily follow, but there is no seat that the PLP has not won at some point in its history.
No seat? Let me think about
Let's
that.
check that.
Did
Montague,
Montague?
maybe something up in there,
I don't think
maybe?
we ever won Montague. There's been variations of types of seats, like Shirley, Montague. Long Island was cut into two, and there's parts of Long Island I don't think we've ever won, the North and the South. I think it's the South that we always had difficulty in, but we won Abaco. Yep. So I think that there might have been one or two seats that we've not won. Not one.
And the way I
Maybe one.
The way I described Englerston, that's correct. Sir Clifford first,
Yes.
followed by Peter Bethel.
Yes.
I used to help Peter Bethel. Let me say that. This
I
is-
heard.
We went to government high
I
together.
heard.
And I like softball. And he was one of the best.
Yeah, yeah.
So I kind of walked in his shoes a bit there. And then Phil Glenys. I think he was just one term.
One term.
And then you.
Yes.
Did you have to kind of finagle that seat away from him?
No. I was the candidate in, well, I was, let me put it this way. I was a candidate in what was then called Holy Cross. It was represented by Carl Bethel. And we had lost by more than 400 votes. And I decided I would go in there once I determined I would run. So I went in there and I worked that for almost a year. And I knew I was making significant inroads. But about 3 months before the general elections of 2002, there was some shifts being made for different reasons. And Glenys did not offer in the 2002 election. We didn't run a candidate in Bamboo We supported the independence run of Tennyson Wells. So we had to shift candidates around. And I moved from Holy Cross into Englerston about 3 months before the general elections. So no, I didn't have to finagle anything. I mean, I don't think, I was not aware of any such thing. But
did you have to convince Englerston? Because Peter Bethel is a tall giant, and here comes this shorter lady.
Well, you know, I don't know. That was an election which was like a watershed election. We won by a huge mandate, landslide. So I'm not sure how much it was to do with me or the movement of the people in that election. That was, Ingram had been in office, he had two terms. And I think at that point people wanted a change. And Christie was the new leader of the PLP, and you know, that's when we first had rallies at Clifford Park, first time ever, and the party attracted thousands and thousands. So I don't know whether it was me or what, you know, I think that we were on the same page in terms of wanting a change of direction for the country.
What's the closest to being beaten in you've been there, what, 15, 20 years?
Yeah, this is my fourth term. Well, let me just say before I answer that, in the last election in 2007, no, 2012, I garnered more votes than any candidate in this country. And so, yeah, more than any candidate. It was a very, and I got new areas.
More than Christie?
Yes, more than Christie. And I
more
got.
than Minnis?
Yeah. Yeah, was Minnis there? I think he was. Yeah. We're more than Minnis. And I, you know, and I took in areas that had not been historically, well, that had, the FNM had held. We took in parts of Mount Moriah, which was previously represented by Tommy Turnquest. And then we went into Ridgeland Park West, new areas. And so I feel very proud about that. We worked hard in that election, but this time around was the closest. I've seen an editorial, one of the newspapers describe it as me hardly winning my seat. That's how it was described. But when you consider the tsunami that was experienced in New Providence, where excellent MPs, PLPs, lost by hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of votes, and they were excellent MPs. I don't think there's any debate about it. We were able to hold on. This was the closest election for me. In fact, I lost 3 polling divisions. One was a new area that I got, which was in the Garden Hills area. And I didn't have time to really get in there like I should have. And then the other 2 areas were areas that I had held in the prior election. One was in part of Regent Park, and the other one was part of the original Englerston. And so this was the closest. But I don't see it that way. I see it as the people of Englerston pushing back an incredibly forceful assault politically and holding on. I look at the Grove. I was telling some of my generals this the other day. I have Englerston incorporates a part of the Grove from 1st Street, from 8th Street to one side of 3rd Street between Coconut Grove and Robinson Road. And we lost all of the Grove except that portion. And I just marvel at it because, and I don't take credit for it as much as I say the people of Englerston with that kind of legacy that you speak of pushed back. They held strong.
Just for the record, I'm an Englerston boy.
Just for the record, I know that.
And the record is clear on what Minnie Street, Ida Street, Padulio Street, Washington Street, right around the park there. I think that's a great constituency.
It's a beautiful community, and your mother really held on, stayed in there longer than you. You gone out and
I went away for a while.
You went away, and whatever. But she knew where she come from, and she had a reading workshop with young children. She's one of the builders of Englerston, and so for those who don't know, Darold Miller is a son of Englerston, and his mother is one of the foundations of that community.
Yes.
And we appreciate her very much because she's a highly intelligent, conscientious woman.
And she told me to give you her love.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Now, I'm itching to ask you this question. We could come back to all these other things, but you know there's a question that I'm itching to ask you. Dying to ask you this question. Do you really support these calls for marital rape to become an offense under our laws? And if you do, what would your daddy say to you?
Well, I don't know. I mean, let me answer the first part of that question first. I just saw a clip from Oprah Winfrey. She got the Cecil B. DeMille Award in America, and they're global, they call them the Global Awards, whatever they call it, the film awards. And, you know, she spoke about the recent movement in America where more and more women have come forward, where it's a clear phenomenon that's probably been going on for decades, where men of power and money have been just having a lavish, extravagant feast in terms of their sexual behaviors with women who work with them, and they see it as an extension of their power. And women have been subject to it, have gotten ahead with it, or whatever it is. But at the end of the day, it's something that is, it doesn't sink right in the psyche of most women, I don't think. And I raise that to say this. The history of women, there was a time we could not vote. We voted for the first time in 1962. And the whole history of women in this human planet, and even now as we speak today, women continue to struggle. Some girls can't go to school in parts of this world. But in our own country, the struggle of women has been one of coming from a place of secondary existence to arguing and believing that they're entitled to full human rights equally with any man. The issue of marital rape is really big. And I think Thomas Evans he wrote a letter in the Tribune, and he showed where the English law changed on this. There was a case where a man was alleged to have raped his wife. Now, currently our law says you can rape your wife only if there's an order of legal separation, something of that nature, but not where you cohabit under the same roof. There's no such thing. And I believe it comes from this fiction that when you marry a man, you become his. You become one, and the one is him.
Yes.
And the one is him.
Yes.
No, I'm sorry. That doesn't. There's no one becoming one other person. When you can come together, one in a new sort of corporate ideal, as you and me coming together and creating a new reality, but not me disappearing into you. That's not. That I'm sorry. That don't work. But anyhow, the point I'm making is this: that in that case, it was alleged under English law that he could not rape his wife. And the law found that it was always a fiction, that, you know, you don't become no one, and that you can rape your wife. And rape is about the non-consensual violation of another human being, in this case, a man of his wife. And so there's no legal construct which can rationalize force or any type of coercion being exercised or executed to force yourself on someone, and that you have no recourse under the law.
Maybe not legal, but biblical.
What is the
You're supposed
recourse?
to submit yourself to your husband.
You know, that is.
Forgive me if
No,
I sound crass.
You know, you sound a little cross. No. I'm only teasing. But let me say this, right? In law, there's this thing called consortium, where when married couples are obliged to do things for each other. It's not one-dimensional. It's not you submit to your husband. It's where you agree through the marriage contract that you will share with what you call this consortium, and it's cooking, cleaning, sharing, sexual relations, etc. It's part of the contract. Where that falls afoul, there are remedies for that. The remedy is not violence or coercion of any shape or form. And so when they say submit to your husband, they probably mean to say too that husband should submit to his wife also. But it's only part of that consensual relationship. Where it lacks consensuality, it's no longer consensual, then it's something else. And that is why you have this push on the marital rape issue, because it is merely requiring that the law recognize that even in a marriage, a woman continues to have legal rights as to a person. That's all it is. And that is and the fact that does not exist is a deficiency in our law.
Listen.
It is a setback for women.
Yeah, but Pinlin ain't touch it.
Right.
Your daddy, former Deputy Prime Minister Eddie Hanna, ain't touch it. Why you won't touch that?
But you know, if you look at their involvement, they were part of our our journey, and the journey continues. Women, they were part of the right for women to vote. Some people say women shouldn't vote either. They should stay in the house, cook, clean, whatever. They weren't smart enough or whatever the story was. So they were advocates. They said women should vote. So, you know, this is just part of the natural journey of that empowerment, legal empowerment. It is recognizing that even in a marriage contract, spouses continue to have legal rights that should be respected. That's all it is.
Our very special guest today is the Progressive Liberal Party's Member of Parliament for Englerston, Glenys Hanna-Martin. She's the daughter of former Deputy Prime Minister of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, the Honorable Arthur Dion Hanna. We're going to take this break to recognize our many sponsors, and we'll be back on Darold Miller Live right after these messages.
heard from us. Now hear what our customers have to say about Alive.
I can tell you it has been a smooth transition. I can tell you I feel comfortable. I didn't have no breaking calls. I can tell you I was in Canada where I went to take my daughter, and I was able to make calls freely around. So I think it is something that is worthy of emulation. When you talk about the telecommunication system, it's an absolute example of good service, good customer service. You know, there are a lot of organizations talking about crime. But I can tell you, Alive is a company who put their money where their mouth is. They've been working in partnership with the RBPF, the Royal Bahamas Police Force, by virtue of reaching out to children, reaching out to the community, and helping in our attempt to prevent crime in our community. So, you know, I must tell you, they are worthy of emulation. If in one word I want to tell you to the Bahamas, believe in the best.
Alive. Believe in best. The new year just got even better with Alive. Keep your number, switch your network, and you can get great deals on great phones for the entire month, like the Alcatel 5085 for $49, the iPhone 8 for $599, or the Samsung Galaxy Note 8 for $649. Remember, you have to make the switch to take advantage of these deals. Promotion good at all Alive stores throughout the country until January 31st or while supplies last. Terms and conditions apply. Alive. Believe in best.
I ain't getting up in this. The Illuminati got everybody marked. Everyone confused. Climate change gotta be real. These hurricanes slamming, but they say that's fake news. Then my brand new second-hand car just reached here from Japan, and the radio don't speak English. But this is CD player, no iPods, no generation out of as hard as they doing us.
Time out for a Sans. Come home to Sans Beer, the 100% true Bahamian beer. You are the man in the boat. Sans regular, Sans light, Sans pink rather. Come home.
You've heard from us. Now hear what our customers have to say about Alive.
At first I was reluctant to change phones. I've been with the other company for so long. And you know, old folks have difficulty with this new equipment. But the number of things I've been able to do on this phone with such ease. Then the first time I switched to Alive, I went into the office and I was swarmed with young persons teaching me how to do this. They were so helpful. And anytime I had any problems, I go by there. Yeah, Mr. Christie, what you need? And they take care of me. But I master this. As old as I am, I still master this. You know, it's easy to work with. I never have to leave my home to go on the street to buy a phone card. It's so easy. I buy a plan and then it auto-renews. I use my credit card. And for a person like me, I need to be running all over the place. I just sit right over and boop, boop, boop. And that's it. Alive has been a joy to work with.
Alive. Believe in best.
The views and opinions expressed on this show or program are not a reflection of the Bahamas Radio Network and, as an extension, the Broadcasting Corporation of the Bahamas.
Welcome back to Darold Miller Live here on the ZNS Radio and Television Networks. I want to say a special thank you to Variety Disposable. They have come on board as a long-term sponsor here on Darold Miller Live. Variety Disposable, located Faith Avenue North, very convenient location, also on Soldier Road here in New Providence, and they have, everything you need. Hand towels, paper towels, sternos, portable stoves. They got a food line. They got all the sauces and seasonings you need. Deodorizers for the house or the office. Dishwashing liquid, the one that's minerally enriched so your fingers and hand don't look shabby afterward. They got the glimmer wear and the reflection wear you're having parties or weddings. They got cupcake stands, they got tablecloths, everything. Go and check it out. Wholesale prices. Make sure call my name, tell Mr. Knowles or Mr. Sweeting, Darold Miller sent you. They're going to take very, very good care of you. Variety Disposable. We're going to tell you more about them later on this week. Speaking of later on this week, we're going into Grand Bahama tomorrow. Special thank you to Sky Bahamas, Captain Randy Butler. Thank you very, very much for providing the airline travel for us. The outings in Grand Bahamas, provided us with beach, canal front condo to stay. That's going to be nice. And then we are live from the Pink Building. You know about the Pink Building? It's the Port Authority, the Grand Bahama Port Authority on the main Mall Drive. Historic live TV and radio from that boardroom as we look at the economic outlook for Grand Bahama in this new year. So Ian Roll and his competent team of executives are going to be featured on Thursday's show. And then we're going to remain in Freeport for the Friday show. Kevin Stewart of Statoil and others, maybe Edney Anderson of Pine Yard Steel, will be some of our guests on Friday. We want to thank in advance our competent team in the northern services of the Broadcasting Corporation of the Bahamas. Okay. A few more questions, and then we're opening the lines for Glenys Hanna-Martin, the Progressive Liberal Party's Member of Parliament for Englerston, and someone who is steeply rooted in this whole idea of Bahamianism. It is said that Arthur Hanna was the one who crafted Bahamianization. Yeah.
That is true.
Yeah.
And it's been the singular most important initiative in the economic development of our country. And the only query we have today is how faithful we've been to the tenets of that. And there's some stuff happening now which caused me great concern by this new government in their policy initiatives. They
What you talking about?
Well, one is the commercial enterprises bill that
Ain't nothing wrong with that bill.
That's what you say, but philosophically I have a problem with it.
That's what exists today.
What? That's what
It
exists.
just ain't calling it fronting no more.
What exists today? I'm not sure what you mean. What do you mean by that? What exists today?
You got money, you can get a license.
What the effect of this legislation? That's only one aspect, because you're going to Freeport and they're bringing legislation also that relates to Grand Bahama that they're not really elucidating in a way that we are.
Let's elucidate.
But let's get to the commercial enterprises bill first. It's really a work permit bill. That's all it is. It puts in place, and they made it up as they went along, because when they saw the resistance to it, including Hubert Ingram, who came, he came out in the campaign for the Free National Movement. But he came out and said that, come on, the level is too low, you're giving away the country. And then, of course, you had resistance from the unions. You had the Bahamas Federation of Employers under whatever. No. This is yes, you can get work permits now, but we have a policy. The policy is that work permits are only given where there are Bahamians that are qualified. Now, what has evolved is that you, as a concession with foreign direct investors, meaning the Bahamian people, the governments, have given work permits up front, whether you are able to find Bahamians who fill it or not. And it's designed to really bring like the top brass for that agency. But what this is doing now, this has the effect of causing for the issuance of work permits potentially without even the involvement of the Department of Immigration. Because it says once you go through this process in the Office of the Prime Minister, and they give a certificate, you will automatically I say automatically, because if the director does not respond within 14 working days or whatever it is, that you will be deemed to be given a work permit for 3 years. 3 years. And so you've taken away a process, a scrutinizing process, which goes back to the roots of Bahamianization in this country. You're now saying off the top, you can get work permits. I have a problem with that. Now, they're saying that it's to create efficiencies and all this kind of thing, which is their rationale, but it's not transparent. And the Bahamian people will not know, I don't think. I think they say they're going to issue something or whatever. But what we found in this, they were changing the law as they went along. Now they're shifting it to say, well, it's really designed for Bahamians to get work permits. But it's the same principle, whether it's a Bahamian getting work permits.
A Bahamian company
applying
getting
for
a work
permit, yes,
for a foreign worker that the Bahamian company needs.
Yes, but there was an amendment brought at the last minute in the Parliament. They're making it up as they go along because they saw the flood of resistance, because Bahamians are rooted in the original ideology of Bahamianization. And so when you take us away from that, you're going to find resistance. And so I have a problem with that, but they're trying to change the dialogue now. I think the Prime Minister, he went to Washington to find Bahamians to come back, and all of this is just smoke and mirrors, because fundamentally what they have done is to create a legal framework to allow for foreign companies who invest minimally $250,000 to come into this country and to get work permits, and work permits in such widely described areas and endeavors that you could realistically have an administrative assistant getting a work permit. This takes us back to pre-1967 in this country, and so I'm offended by it, and we have to keep talking about it. And I don't care how much they try to pretty it up or change the meaning of it. Fundamentally, that is what has happened with this bill.
Are you saying what was only in policy has now become law?
No, what I was saying is that the policy, which has been basically enshrined, has been erased by law.
The policy has been, you come here with so much money and start a business or make an investment, you could get some work permits, and you can get residency.
The policy about residency dealt with when you acquire property, land acquisition, and for residential purposes. So that's a different type of thing, and we got to look at that too. We got to raise that level. We're giving away our land for minimal investment, really, let's face it. And so we have to look at that. But no, what the policy is that when you have foreign direct investors coming to your country, you do cost-benefit analysis. You look to see what it is they're bringing, what the value is to the Bahamian people. And sometimes we meaning governments, successive governments, have issued work permits at certain levels to allow the company to do whatever it has to do. But that you still have to go through a process in that respect. You do not take away the authority of the Director of Immigration. It's always subject to the Director of Immigration. This law now has the effect of saying, if the director don't answer you, too bad, you can get it. And so the scrutiny process, you don't even analyze or scrutinize it. Now I hear them saying now, well, we can do that in the office of the Prime Minister. They're making it up as they go along. What they've done, and it's the resistance that caused them to make it up now as they go along, what they've done is take us back to a pre-1967 in terms of the Bahamianization policy. It's a very serious thing that has happened, and Bahamians have to be aware and alert. We can't be tired, demoralized, or whatever. We have to see what's happening. Now, in Grand Bahama for me is shocking what they intend to do. They've laid draft legislation, and to be honest with you, I woke up this morning thinking this is payback. Probably, I'm guessing, for...
You mean because Grand Bahama went all red?
No. I'm talking the Port Authority. In terms of financial contributions during elections, I'm guessing. I'm connecting the dots in my mind.